you so much for coming all the way down to Master Report HQ to have a chat with us today about all things Bowmore and Aston Martin.
Christy, it's an absolute pleasure. It's my first time down here, so an added incentive to come down, but obviously the main reason for being here, Aston Martin and Bowmore getting together.
Yes, absolutely. And it seems like a really interesting collaboration. So Bowmore's obviously a super historic Islay distillery. Aston Martin are all about the fast cars and the fanciness and all of this. What is it about the two brands that kind of resonates? Like, what makes this partnership work?
I know, because on the surface, it's like this is maybe not something you'd associate together with each other, but they're both iconic British brands. They've both been around for a considerable length of time, and kind of almost like as long as we have records for Scotch whisky, we've had Bowmore. Kind of like as long as we've had British car making industry, Aston Martin's been part of it. So they have that shared sort of heritage there as well. And then there is both brands this determination to be the best at what they do, to sort of transcend fads and fashion, but to achieve almost a certain timeless quality in what they're producing here. So there was actually quite a lot of factors that made sense, that sort of interlocked together, that made it a really put a lot of sense into the partnership.
Yeah, of course. And how did the partnership come about, first of all? I mean, who approached who? How did this all happen?
Well, I believe, and I'm not totally sure that I'm totally in the loop on this, I know that Bowmore were looking for some partnerships going forward. They were looking for a brand that had shared values, and they approached some brands. Aston Martin was one of the brands. That this synergy was there. It worked for Aston Martin. It worked for Bowmore. So, in no sense has it been one brand, forcing themselves on the other. There has been throughout the build up to it, the finalization of it, the announcement of it. There's a synergy. It's a collaboration between two great brands.
Yeah, sure. And it feels like it's been out in the world for a little bit of time now. Obviously, the first whiskey was released last month, which we're going to have a chat about in a minute. But yeah, back in November last year, when the news broke, it was all about creating whiskies together, releasing whiskies together, and obviously events. But the world has changed since then. So, what does the partnership look like now? Will there be events to look forward to still?
Absolutely. I think we just have to say they're still to be looked forward to. We can't put an exact date on them, but the events that were being planned were in the pipeline. They're still there. They will happen. So be this, driving events with Aston Martin. I know there's been talk of, getting out to the Nürburgring in Germany. These big, great racing events of getting people up to the distillery in Bowmore, and certainly what I can't wait to see is an Aston Martin on the roads of Islay, heading around the island there. There's some great potential here. Everything has had to be put on hold for a little bit, but it is still definitely going forward. Now, as is seen with the fact we have launched the Bowmore DB5 a little later than we planned on it, but it's happened.
I love this idea of an Aston Martin coming to Islay because the roads are stunning. It's such beautiful scenery. I can't wait to see the photography. But back onto the DB5 whiskey, because I have come at this from a very whiskey-based perspective. I didn't even know that was a type of car. Talk to us a little bit about the expression. Like, how did that come about? And it kind of harks back to sort of the Black Bowmore phenomenon. And I want to hear you talk about that because that's really exciting.
Absolutely. So, first Black Bowmore was released in the early 1990s. What made it special for a couple of reasons. 1964, the distillery replaced the coal-fired direct heated stills with steam heat. So they were much more controllable. We could produce a much better quality new make distillate. Some of the very first of that distillate produced in 1964 is the base of Black Bowmore. Then, as you well know, being the whiskey aficionado that you are, when we put that spirit into a cask, we kind of lose control of what goes on. Sometimes great things happen, sometimes not so great things happen, and every now and then something truly remarkable and amazing happens. And with Black Bowmore, something truly remarkable and amazing happened. And we found that we had this amazingly rich, full-flavoured whiskey, still had some peat notes to it, but tropical fruit notes that you associate with some of the very best Bowmores. all of these flavours intensified, concentrated. It was some of the best liquid that came out of a cask at the distillery. And so we had something really rather wonderful. It was from 1964 with Aston Martin. Although the DB5 as a car was released in 1963, it kind of became iconic in 1964 because then it was featured in Goldfinger, the first James Bond film where it was featured. So again, there's a lovely synergy, serendipity with the date there. When Black Bowmore was first released, it was a fairly limited edition. Then over the next few years, 10, 15, 20 years, every now and then we'd release another Black Bowmore, all from the same distillate, but matured for longer and longer. So part of the same family, different flavours developing over the time. So we had a range of these 5 different Black Bowmores. The Bowmore DB5 is a 6th expression, if you like, but actually the liquid is the 31-year-old liquid, and it has been held in glass for the last however many years was needed to be held there. So it hasn't been maturing in oak any further. So it is liquid that we have released before, but now in a very different package as part of this very different partnership.
Of course, because I guess once whiskey's out of that cask and into something inert, it's like frozen in time, right? So it's going to have a lot of those same characteristics.
Yeah, absolutely. And people will talk and assure, it's true that, okay, even out of the cask, you will get certain developments of flavour, but they are going to be much more subtle. You're not adding flavour in from the wood anymore. So it might well taste subtly different from the original 31-year-old Black Bowmore, but that is what the liquid is.
Amazing. And I gather it's an ex-sherry cask, is that right?
It is absolutely ex-sherry, Oloroso sherry, Williams and Humbert, first fill sherry casks. I believe they are all first fill sherry casks, but certainly Williams and Humbert, Oloroso sherry, full maturation in those sherry casks. This has given us this amazing flavour, but the amazing colour as well.
Yeah. And it's incredible because it's right that there's like only 27 bottles ever released, which is just extraordinary.
Absolutely. So for Black Bowmore overall, over the previous 5 expressions, it is it's just over 5,000 bottles in total. For this DB5 Bowmore, there are only 27 bottles being released. I believe too that 2 of those bottles are actually going into the archive. They are so in effect globally. There's 25 bottles available of this liquid.
I'm so glad that some is being saved because you can't have this stuff like lost forever or drunk. I mean, I'm sure people are going to save it, but you've got to keep some, so that's great. I want to know a little bit about the collaboration on the whiskey itself. So was it in terms of more kind of the whiskey development? I guess not if it's been in that inert vessel, but the packaging, like how did that work out between the two players?
Yeah, the whiskey was there. So there was not an Aston Martin input into the whiskey making process, but then absolutely the packaging, the creative input design of the packaging, that's where Aston Martin have had a huge role to play in this. The combination of it is in a glass bottle, in a beautifully crafted glass bottle, but then fitted into what is genuinely the piston from an Aston Martin engine.
Wow.
This is part of the bottle there. So that is a practical representation of the collaboration between the 2 brands, which really reflects the slightly more metaphysical collaboration about how the 2 brands have these shared values and the timeless qualities that they share here.
Perfect. And what can we expect to see next? What's going to be coming soon? Are there going to be more of these like incredible high-end releases?
I really wish I could tell you this in some detail. There are going to be more releases coming out over the course of the next few years. This is an ongoing project. What the next one is going to be, let alone the ones after that, I'm afraid I do not know. So I'm just going to keep you hanging in suspense.
Thank you so much for chatting through the partnership with us. I'm so excited to see what comes next.
I'm really looking forward to being able to tell you about it as well. Thank you so much for having me here.
Yay.